Today we have Richard Condon here, a good friend of mine. He's a Rolfer in the area, and as well as a weightlifter. Masters level weightlifting, is that right?
That's right.
And what's Masters level weightlifting?
So at 35 and up, you have the option of competing as a master. Just to make a distinction and acknowledge that, generally speaking, by 35 you're not lifting as much weight as you were when you were 20, 25. So you can compete against people of your own age. So it's set up in 5-year age brackets from 35 on.
Oh, every 5 years you change?
Every 5 years you change. So I just turned 55, which means I entered into now a new bracket. So I'm in the 55 to 59, and then there'll be a 60 to 64, and so on and so on.
So you should be kicking butt since you're the youngest in your bracket.
I am. So another aspect of this that I hadn't thought about when I started the sport is that, at least for me, and I think this is true of a number of other lifters, is we look forward to those birthdays that most people dread. Like when I was about to turn 50, I was delighted.
Oh, wow.
And at 55, I was delighted, and I'm already starting to look forward to turning 60, which I don't know that many people feel that way, but
that's a first that I've heard, yeah.
But, you know, when you're in a sport like this, you want those birthdays that move you into the next age group.
So you're obviously looking forward to competing for a long time.
Well, I've gone through a number of sports in my life, and I think this is it.
Mm-hmm. This is the one. You were a swimmer, and you were a runner, and a cross trainer. Is that
right? I guess I went swimming, high school and college, running for decades really after that. Then I segued into triathlon. And then there was this period where I had a running related injury. I mean, the thing is, running seemed to be the sport that injured me the most.
Injured you?
Yeah. And I mean, it wasn't injured like I'm bedridden, but injured in the sense that there's some nagging issue that made it either uncomfortable or in some cases impossible to run.
Right.
Which is what, as that was happening more and more, I decided, well, I'll just go into triathlon. I've got a swimming background.
Right.
I'll just have to learn how to ride a bicycle. And
no, that's a natural. But what doesn't seem like such a natural, probably for me, when I heard about your transition to weightlifting, going from being such a runner and having a real lean body to becoming a weightlifter, getting a little bigger, bulking out, and lifting all this heavy weight. I mean, what was that transition like?
All right, so I'm going to bring a few elements into the answer. First of all, it wasn't exactly a deliberate decision. What happened is I had a running-based injury. I was training for our local SOS triathlon, which involves almost 19 miles of trail running.
It's pretty grueling.
You can't fake the run in that one.
Yeah.
I mean, and I just had some kind of, it wasn't exactly an Achilles tendonitis, but we'll just call it that. It was something like that. Every step hurt. It wasn't like it just hurt the beginning. It hurt the whole run. And I remember I just finished this 8-mile run that every single step hurt. And I thought, why am I doing this? I mean, I'm only doing this for fun. I'm not getting paid by Nike. I mean, you know, this isn't fun.
Right. Yeah.
So I realized that I have to just withdraw from the race. Now that happened at a time, it just dovetailed with, I had just discovered CrossFit, which was, or is, a exercise modality wherein there's a workout of the day. Now the workout can be scaled. In other words, it might involve, it's like a mashup of gymnastics, weightlifting, and when I say weightlifting, I mean Olympic style weightlifting. That's a sport
in and of itself
called weightlifting where it's written as one word, as opposed to lifting weights like at a gym where you just say, I'm doing a workout with weights, and that would be weight, space, lifting. Like two separate words.
Okay. I think I got it. Yeah.
So from here on in, if I say weightlifting, I mean the sport of Olympic weightlifting, which is 2 lifts, the snatch and the clean and jerk. they're both floored overhead. Anyway, we'll have some video of that at some point, so that'll be explained.
Yeah.
So now I've kind of fallen off the tracks of my train of thought. Right, so I just discovered CrossFit. So it's a mashup of some gymnastics, Olympic lifting, and just body weight calisthenic exercises, push-ups, chin-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, muscle-ups on rings. So I really enjoyed that, and it was very communal. Whereas running, I mean, most of my running workouts, I was just alone on the roads. Me and the stopwatch, like clicking off the miles. So I really enjoyed the community aspect of CrossFit. The running injury was taking forever to get better. And I just felt, I mean, I always assumed I was going to go back to triathlon, and I just felt like, I'm not in such a rush. This is fine for now. I'm getting my itch scratched here.
Yeah, you're strong enough doing that.
That's where I learned the Olympic lifts.
That's what
at CrossFit.
That's what resonated with you mostly? So
I really enjoyed them. Now, when I was 5 years old, watching Vasily Alexeyev, the Russian super heavyweight, on ABC's Wild World of Sports on Sunday morning, I remember just being fascinated. I mean, I had no idea what kind of weights he was lifting. I just knew it was a lot of weight. And I remember watching him do snatch and clean and jerk. I didn't really know what they were, but just being fascinated.
Yeah.
I don't remember thinking one day I want to do that. Nothing like that. It made enough of an impression on me where I remember. I mean, I don't remember a lot of things I watched on TV at 5.
Right.
But I remember that.
That was something.
And so when I learned the lifts in CrossFit, it brought that memory back to me. I thought, that's right. I remember watching this, you know, when I was 5 years old. And
you got a little bit of the urge to actually give it a try now.
Well, at some point I thought, I'm gonna compete in this. I like this.
And so what type of, how heavy are you lifting? When you do a snatch, a clean and jerk, like how heavy are you actually lifting?
Well, okay, I'll answer that. Look, so there's just one more piece to this. So what happened, what put the nail in the coffin for me in terms of any endurance sports was 1 month after my first weightlifting competition, which I really enjoyed, but I'm still in the back of my mind thinking eventually I'm going to get back to my triathlons, and I had a massive pulmonary embolism, and that kind of just ruined my lungs. I mean,
How old were you then?
I was 46. It was right after my first competition.
Okay, 46. And you couldn't really run much anymore after that?
No, I mean, that's still the case. My blood oxygen levels plummet. I mean, I desaturate very fast. So if I ran a quarter mile, not even fast, I mean, I'd be gasping for air, sadly.
So how do you come back from that type of injury or that type of problem when you're an athlete and then you have this, you can't even run a few blocks, is that right?
Yeah, I don't know. If there was a zombie apocalypse, I'd be eaten. Yeah, so I mean, I think that this was in large measure a fantastic example of serendipity. Because I would have absolutely gone into some sort of deep depression if this had happened to me and I didn't have any other venue to channel my athletic aspirations into.
Right. I think a lot of people who are athletic and who want to be have a lot of energy, if we get an injury, if we can't do our chosen sport, we feel we get very despondent about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like injuries, but at least an injury I know, okay, this is for a period of time, it's temporary.
Right.
But my lung situation is, you know, until I don't need my lungs anymore.
And so you feel now, so the lifting, you don't get your heart racing so much, it's not such an issue?
It's anaerobic. So, I mean, one heavy clean and jerk will put my heart rate up very high, although I've never actually measured how high, but it'll go high, I guarantee it. But, I mean, then the lift's done. It doesn't matter if I'm out of breath.
Right.
I mean, you're not forced to take, when you're in competition, they're clocks.
Right.
And even if you have to follow yourself and someone does something called burning your clock, you still have at least a minute, which is enough time. I mean, it's not optimal for me maybe, but I can do it.
Right. And so at this point, you feel like you can continue competing well into your 70s. You think this is a safe thing for you?
Safe, absolutely. Yeah. Now there are guys who compete. I mean, the oldest Masters lifters right now, males 85. There are a few guys over 85, so they're in their own age group now.
Yeah.
I think the oldest women are 75 to 79. I could be wrong. I don't remember seeing any women at national meets who were over 80.
And what about I was thinking.
But I'm sure that's coming. Because women live longer than men anyway.
Right.
So
that's the statistic.
Yeah.
What about your knowledge of anatomy? So Richard, as I said, is a Rolfer. He does deep tissue massage and stuff like that. Has your knowledge of anatomy helped with your training at all?
Well, it helps me identify what muscles sore.
Immediately.
I don't know. I don't honestly think that it helps me tremendously.
No. Okay. So you're not focusing on a certain muscle because you're just doing certain lifts repetitively. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you?
There are movement patterns that you are trying to refine, and that's sort of a never-ending process.
Right.
And it's not like riding on a bike, and that like one day, like probably the snatch is the more technical of the two moves. One day I can feel like I've grooved it. I mean, it's all about timing. Like you're pulling the bar, and at a certain height you want to pull yourself under, and you don't want to cut that pull short. You don't want to over pull, and I'll feel like, okay, I've got it. I've got this. Right. Then next week I don't got it, and that's not just me. That's just it's a very frustrating sport that way. But that makes it all the sweeter when you really hit that mark.
You get the mark.
Yeah, because you know it's not an easy thing, so it means something when you get it.
Right. And I think I asked this earlier, but I don't think we got to it. What type of weight are you lifting?
Yeah, so well, my best at this point, last year, it was the beginning of 2018, I snatched 100 kilos, which is 220 pounds.
220 pounds.
And I clean, snatches, you're not going to snatch as much as clean and jerk, because snatch you're bringing it floor to overhead in one motion.
Okay.
Whereas clean and jerk, the clean is to your shoulders, the jerk is overhead.
And you weigh how much? How many pounds?
Well, at that time I was probably about 76 kilos. They've changed the weight classes. So I was competing as a 77 kilo lifter. It was about 169 pounds. Now my weight class is 81 kilos, so about 178 pounds.
So you're around.
So I'm trying to fill out now into that heavier weight class.
Right.
I'm about 79 kilos right now.
And do you have, that's a lot of weight, a lot more than you weigh, that you're lifting. So are there doctors, are there people who have said to you, Mr. Condon, you should not be lifting this much weight at your age?
There are doctors who have, I don't think any doctor has specifically cited the weight, but just generally a concern that I shouldn't be exerting myself so hard.
Just because this is interesting. So are they asking you shouldn't be exerting yourself mostly because of your age or because of this pulmonary issue with your lungs?
No, actually, my cardiologist is all for me exerting. He says the best thing is to put, and in fact, I had the embolism because I had a blood clot form in my calf. Mm. Now, I found this an interesting social phenomenon. So I'm on Facebook. So at some point posted something about having a pulmonary embolism, and I can't tell you how many of my Facebook friends said, well, don't you think that's because of your weightlifting?
It must be the weightlifting. Yeah.
What they ask you, what causes a blood clot to form is inactivity.
Right.
When I'm at the doctors and they're trying to figure out why does this guy have an embolism, they ask you if you're a smoker. I'm not. They ask you, and I guess that, and then the other health questions are, have you been sick and bedridden? Did you take a long plane flight where you didn't get up? In other words, have you been sitting on your butt?
Yeah.
They don't ask you, are you lifting heavy weights?
That's not.
That has nothing to do with it. In fact, that is preventative.
Right.
But there's such a belief system in place in our culture that, there's some number, sort of nebulous number after which you shouldn't exert yourself, God knows what could happen to you.
Right, that's what this is about. So getting right to the crux of this.
That's why I was so keen to do this.
Yeah, right. Both of us in our 50s now.
Yeah.
So this is something you're going to continue doing. Now, and you're doing any other sports at all?
Not now. I mean, I miss running. I still have running dreams. But anyway. I sometimes have swimming dreams. My swimming dreams crack me up because it's almost always the same scenario where I'm whatever age I am in reality, but for some reason I'm in my college pool with a bunch of college-age swimmers, and my college coach, at the age he was when I swam for him, and he's saying, "Come on, let's go." And I'm saying, "Coach, I'm however old I am, I'm a 55-year-old man, I can't do these sets anymore." And he's like, Let's go. I don't want this nonsense. Let's go, Condon.
I've been there.
And then, that's the dream.
Yeah.
And then I'm floundering in the water. It's just horrible. Oh man, there's swimming over top of me. Like, what's this piece of detritus doing in my lane? But
right.
So anyway, those dreams do occur. But I miss all those things. But I'm very happy I found a sport that I enjoy very much. I can be competitive in.
Yeah.
The physical handicap I have, post-embolism, is not really a big factor. I can still train effectively. I can compete.
Yeah.
So in that case, I mean, in that sense, I'm blessed, and I'm not gonna.
Speaking of Facebook, I think I saw you do like an amazing no-hand backflip or something just recently on Facebook, and I was like, oh, he can still do these gymnastics things.
Yeah. So I learned how to do a backflip when I was 45, and I remember thinking, I'm gonna cling on to this as long as I can.
Right.
So I was very happy. I hadn't done one in a while, and I will say the reason I didn't do one is I did hurt my back. I mean, I had a few predisposing factors. For one, I have a scoliosis, not caused by weightlifting.
Mm-hmm.
I have, long before I started weightlifting, they had identified a vertebra, L2, that had slipped posteriorly in the column. It's called a retrolisthesis. More common is a spondylolisthesis or anterolisthesis when it slips forward. But mine had slipped back. That was, God knows when that happened, but somewhere in my 20s, 30s, or maybe it was congenital, and I don't know. But, so the point being that, what was the point? I think I lost my point. This happens when you go to 50 and beyond.
Yeah.
What was I talking
gymnastics?
about? The gymnastics. So I was trying, though, in this one workout, kind of spontaneously, a max effort deadlift. I was thinking one of the guys I trained with told me he was going to do this powerlifting meet, and I thought, well, maybe I'll jump into that for fun. And I thought, well, let me test my deadlift.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sort of the end of training. I was a little fatigued anyway, and then probably didn't warm up to the weight enough. Anyway, I mean, I was trying this max effort deadlift, and I know I did something in my back doing that.
And that's something I was going to come to. Let's say, just as devil's advocate, like I hear a lot of people say, oh, whether they lift weights or not, oh, deadlifts, you don't want to do deadlifts much because inevitably you're going to hurt your back. I mean, you did hurt your back.
I did.
Deadlift, but well, is that something you see a lot of weightlifters doing? Do they?
Well, I'm going to say most like weightlifters don't do deadlifts. That's more powerlifting. I mean, powerlifters compete deadlifts.
Right.
But the main thing with deadlifts, I mean, it is vilified, but I don't think it's a matter of the form. I mean, you want to keep a neutral spine, but when you're pulling a really heavy weight, it's hard to hold good form, and you tend to round your back. Now, when your back is rounded and you're pulling, as you're trying to pull as much as you physically can with a spine that's not in optimal alignment, yeah, you're going to be subject to injury, as I was.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a devastating injury. I'm fine now.
Okay. So you can continue.
I mean, I didn't do anything too horrible, thank God. But
it seems like your form is still good.
It's still good.
I wanted to ask you about your clients a little bit. So you're a Rolfer here in Gardiner, right? What's your website?
It's nybalance.com.
NYBalance.
Yeah.
And so you have people coming in. You've been doing Rolfer for how many years?
How many years? 8 18 years.
So 18 years as a Rolfer.
Yeah.
And do any of these people say, wow, you're a Rolfer, you're also, you know, an exercise enthusiast? What do they say, hey, what type of exercise should I do? Do they ask you these questions?
Not frequently. I mean, as part of my treatment, I'll often give people certain corrective exercises, but that's more to work against a certain motor pattern, or, I mean, it's not really about developing strength so much as adjusting coordinative patterns in the body.
Just create balance through the symmetrical sides, basically?
Yeah, or, I mean, for instance, a not uncommon thing is that when the hip extends, when you're bringing your leg behind you, the hamstrings initiate the movement, not the glutes. It should be the gluteals, ideally, and so there's certain exercises you can do that prompt the nervous system to reroute, to prefer to use the glutes as initiators over the hamstrings.
Oh, interesting. Right.
But then, you know, it's not about developing massively strong glutes or anything, it's just about rewiring the nervous system, essentially.
And what's your take on, you know, we obviously have different muscle groups, many different muscles. Some specialists say, you know, work all the muscle groups. Some specialists say, you know, try to focus on the core. Some people say you need more strength. Some say more flexibility. So what's your, you know, your mindset on that?
Well, I'm going to answer that question from the perspective of a weightlifter. So weightlifting requires flexibility, but not, I mean, more than certainly a lot of 55-year-olds have, but not maybe as much as a yoga practitioner wants.
Right.
So I don't think it's a bad thing to have more flexibility, but once I'm flexible enough to perform the movements, then I'm not focused on increasing my flexibility beyond that.
Mm-hmm. And have you lost much I mean, I imagine by gaining more muscle bulk, in some ways, you've lost some flexibility since you were younger, obviously.
I have been aware of losing some shoulder flexibility.
Shoulder flexibility.
I mean, this is shameful. I used to be able to, you know, whatever this is called, I could reach and touch I could link my hands behind my back. No, that's gone. Yeah. That's been gone for a long time though. So I don't know. I mean, I don't really do any stretching for my shoulders per se. I mean, I'll typically start out a workout with doing, we call them dislocates, but like I'm holding a PVC pipe and I'll bring my arms behind my back.
Yeah,
I go through a series like that. That's about the only shoulder limbering that I do.
It's funny you mention that, because that's the type of thing I always recommend for people is warm up with a resistance band. Just bring it up and over, or use a towel after a shower. You're nice and warm in your muscles. Take a towel and go backwards and forwards, and you're stretching the major muscle groups. It's a great thing to do, obviously, just to warm up. Plus, a lot of people, would you agree, a lot of people I see get super tight in the pectorals.
Yes,
and they're
it's a great stretch for opening the pecs.
Limiting the kyphosis always, you know, it's good. Yeah. Okay. And what about nutrition? Does that have any bearing on your workouts?
Well, I mean, right now, so I am trying to gain weight, although I'm getting close now. I'm at 79 kilos, so I don't mind. A lot of lifters walk around a little above their weight class, so they have to cut weight right before the competition. That's just a level of stress I'd rather not deal with. I'd like to walk in there knowing I'm fine for weight. Yeah. And 81's heavy. I mean, that's way more than I've ever weighed in my life. I mean, as an example, my college swimming weight, 142 pounds. So right now I'm about 173 pounds.
Wow.
And
see, most guys,
that's a lot heavier.
Yeah, most guys, when they add that much weight, they're out of shape. That you manage to stay in shape. You're doing it. I guess it's a very deliberate action of gaining weight. Anyway,
it is. I mean, I'm trying to make it useful weight, not just a beer belly. I mean, I'm sure I could gain the weight if I just, you know, drank a 6-pack of beer every night. I'd probably put it on, but it wouldn't be very useful. You know?
So speaking of that, speaking of drinking a 6-pack of beer or having
right, you asked me about nutrition.
Yeah, but on another coin, let me put it to another way. How do people who have these addictions, you might say, or you know, you come home from work, you've worked an 8-hour day or something, all you want is a 6-pack, but you know it's better. Yeah, right.
I haven't had that for a while, obviously.
How do you, like, what would you say to someone? I guess I should just ask it directly. What would you say to someone to motivate them? Why should they do some exercise first?
Well, all right, so I'm going to say we're creatures of habit.
Yeah.
If I'm in the habit of coming home, having a six-pack, or any amount of alcohol, it would be hard not to. This is my habit. And I'm just not in that habit. I mean, my father was an alcoholic, although I wasn't aware of it. I mean, he was a very functional alcoholic. He didn't drink at home.
Many are,
yeah. But, I mean, I became aware of it at some point, and I thought, I don't want that to be me. I do have an addictive personality, and I didn't want to get addicted to alcohol. So I never was, I mean, even in college, on a swim team that drank heavily, I mean, I had, well, our coach used to take us down to Fort Lauderdale and train over Christmas break. We were down there for 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. 3 weeks, right?
They don't care.
They don't care. So we were down there for a period of time.
Yeah.
We only had 1 day off. Mm-hmm. So the night before our day off, everyone would go out. And I wasn't going to go, except I thought I'm part of the team. I don't really, it's depressing to sit in the hotel room alone. Right. I'll go out. I mean, they're going to some nightclub or something. So I originally thought I'm just going to go out and won't drink. Then I had 2 beers. We were there probably 3 hours. When I wasn't drinking the beers, I was jumping up and down the dance floor like a jumping bean. So I didn't feel inebriated.
Right.
I mean, I danced it all out of me very fast.
Still working out.
Still working out. And then the next morning I woke up, and everyone else drank a lot more than that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Next morning I woke up feeling so guilty. I went and knocked at my coach's door, woke him up. He wasn't even up yet.
Really?
And I said, "I'm sorry, coach. I drank 2 beers last night."
You're going to confession.
I went to confession.
That's hilarious.
He was just annoyed I woke him up.
Yeah.
He didn't care. He knew. I mean,
yeah.
But so, I mean, all this is to say, I'm answering this question, but I never had that desire. So it's, it's a little disingenuous. I can't say I ever struggled with that.
Right.
But what I will say is that we're creatures of habit, and you can replace habits, I think, easier than you can just stop them.
Right.
If you can replace, for me, training, I mean, if I'm addicted to something, I don't quite feel it fits the bill of an addiction, but I think about training all the time. I'm obsessed with it. I love the idea of improving myself in that way.
Right.
And I do look at strength as an attribute, the way I look at intelligence, say. Now, as far as I understand it, I mean, I can increase my level of education. I can learn new things. I can broaden my horizons. I can change the way I think about things. But I don't know that I can really change my innate intelligence. I was born with whatever intelligence God saw fit to give me, and I don't think I can change that. I can just do different things with it.
You're happy you can change your level of
But
fitness.
I can't change my level of fitness, and I can change my strength. But the other end of that is that fitness, physical strength, unlike intelligence, they'll dissolve quickly if you don't keep putting money in that bank account. Like if you don't use your brain for that much, you might forget some facts. But I don't think you diminish your intelligence. You know what I'm saying? Your capacity to process ideas. Yeah. You just aren't using it. Like a car that sits in the driveway and you can still drive it.
It's interesting also how you just reminded me how it seems like there's this really misunderstood thing about bodybuilders, weightlifters, big guys.
Oh, they all get conflated like they're the same.
Same.
Very different pursuits.
Different pursuits, yeah, so different. And also, what I was going to get to, based on you just said intelligence, I hate to say it, but especially when I was younger, and there's a lot of judgment that, oh, if you're that big, you're probably not that intelligent.
I know what you mean. That's why I'm laughing.
I know, but I don't think anyone looks at a yoga teacher or a gymnast and say, oh, they're probably not that intelligent. But if you're real big, you're probably not that intelligent. I wonder where's that coming from?
I don't know. But I mean, yeah, I think that's a real thing. Yeah, like you see some hulking guy in the gym, and I think if you ask 10 people that just without any data rate his level of intelligence, and then you show those 10 people a yoga instructor rate that person's intelligence, probably the yoga teacher would be accredited with more intelligence, whether deserving or not. I don't know.
It's good for me, but it's a strange
good for you.
Strange bias. Yeah, it's a very odd bias.
Yeah, that's just the way it is.
Yeah. And so one more thing. You're 55 now. You've been an athlete for many years, most of your life. how would you say you feel? What age do you feel now?
It depends what time of day you ask me that. Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, I wake up in the morning, I'm usually sore, stiff. I don't feel great.
Is you don't stretch enough?
That could be. I do think more stretching would be, and it may be a concession I'll have to make. I mean, I've enjoyed a fair amount of just innate flexibility throughout my life.
Right.
I mean, I think I'm hypermobile, meaning like I can touch my, touch my thumb. Like, that's not anything I stretch to do. That's just because the set of my joint capsules and stuff is. There are a lot of things. That's just one thing. I think I'm hypermobile. So that innately gives me more flexibility.
Right.
It also innately makes me a little less stable. So weightlifting is or any kind of strength training is good because it provides more stability.
Right. So it's nice to bring that balance when people aren't.
But I'm a little off topic.
So you wake up in the morning.
So I don't feel great in the mornings. But I want to make the distinction that what I do, the training that I do, isn't for my health. It's to feed my competitive avarice. I mean, honestly, right now I'm 4-time national champion, Masters national champion.
Say that again?
4-time Masters Weightlifting national champion.
Wow.
I took silver once. I'm currently the national champion. I want the national records. I don't have either of them right now, snatch or clean and jerk, but
that's one of your goals.
This coming year at nationals. They're mine. But